It seems the sands of Egypt have finally yielded a discovery of unprecedented implications. Mainstream archaeology is forced to contend with the possibility that some of the more fringe theories could be onto something after all. Something occult circles, secret societies, and ancient thinkers all knew was down there. The megastructure beneath Giza. Hey guys, my name is Andrew. Welcome. This is Tales of the Old World. Now, I'm sure many of you have already heard of the recent discovery underneath the Khafre Pyramid. The basic story is these two researchers, Filippo Biondi and Corrado Malonga, created a program that allowed them to interpret LiDAR scanning data from satellites that are used to track volcanic activity and the like, for the purpose of discovering buried sites in and around the Giza Plateau. Apparently, the government has satellites constantly scanning the Earth for scientific purposes, and nobody until now thought to use this technology for archaeological studies. And when these two guys analyzed the data from under the Khafre Pyramid, they found massive open shafts surrounded by spiral structures that go a kilometer down into the limestone bedrock. And beneath those are huge rectangular-looking structures. So many archaeologists have said that if only we could look under the sands of the Sahara, then we would discover all of Egypt's mysteries. But if this finding is accurate, it changes everything mainstream history holds as truth about our past. No Bronze Age culture could accomplish something like this. From what I can tell, it looks like this technology that these guys are using is actually pretty legit. They've already shown in a previous experiment they conducted that they can accurately show known existing structures in the pyramids, like the King's and Queen's Chamber, and the void that is still yet to be reached, but other scans can tell it exists in the Pyramid of Khufu. The only difference between this way of scanning and the LiDAR scanning that many archaeologists have been doing lately is the depth it reaches. But what does this actually mean? Who on Earth could have possibly tunneled over a kilometer down into the limestone bedrock, creating intricate and what seemed to be mathematically aligned structures as they went? If anything too, these structures must have something to do with the different theories of the uses of the pyramid, possibly relating to the idea that they may have been energy generators. But what's the full story? I mean, there's no way we'll find out for sure anytime soon, but there's definitely some good theories that might come into play here. First off, could this be some kind of buried mega monument, like an extension of the pyramids? Imagine something so large that the pyramids themselves are just the tips of the steeples. This idea actually seems pretty unlikely though. The pyramids themselves are built directly on the limestone bedrock. Limestone that was formed over millions of years of sediment buildup and solidification that took place when the area was a sea around 50 million years ago. Eventually, earthquakes and tectonic activity pushed this limestone upwards until it became a plateau that we see today. This means that these giant cylindrical structures would have had to have been carved down into the rock. So let's get into this whole lost advanced civilization theory, because that's what's on most people's minds when a discovery like this comes out. Who were they? How did they do it? How old was it? Now, from what a lot of researchers have pointed out, ancient Egypt looks like a very old civilization built on an even older, more advanced civilization. Even their own myths and legends tell us this is the case. According to the Egyptian records, there was a whole lineage of ancient pharaohs that came long before the so-called first pharaoh, King Narmer, around 3000 BC. And this lineage of ancient pharaohs was said to have begun with the gods themselves, wielding their advanced divine technology. We see remnants of this older civilization in the pyramids themselves. The largest, most mathematically aligned are also some of the oldest pyramids, and the oldest structures in Egypt also tend to be made out of the extremely dense rose granite rather than the softer limestone. We see this in other structures all over the world where the harder, bigger, megalithic-sized bricks are used on the foundation, and it was only when later civilizations renovated the sites that the smaller, more manageable bricks and stones were added. Another rose granite monument in Egypt is the giant unfinished obelisk. This obelisk, had it been completed, would have weighed 1,200 tons, and is made of solid granite, which is not an easy material to work with. Even with modern tools, it takes hard work and a lot of patience. If you look a little more closely at this thing too, you see what look to be scoop marks taken out of the sides. Nobody can explain this one. archaeologists say slaves would work for years and years on a single section of these scoop marks, slowly chipping it away. But what seems more likely is that they had some kind of technology we're unaware of. They would have needed extremely advanced sawing and boring materials to create what's been discovered under the Khafre pyramid. But this doesn't answer the question of why. Maybe this was some kind of energy collection generator device, like many theorize. Or maybe they were drilling down for a different reason. Maybe they were hiding something down there. There's a belief among many occult circles of a hall of records existing under the Giza plateau. More specifically under the Sphinx. And then there's also the emerald tablets of Thoth, which make mention of the Hall of Amenti underneath Egypt. A place they called Duat in ancient Egypt, but it was later known as Amenthis during the Roman era. Their underworld, where souls would be sent in the afterlife. Perhaps this is one of those places said to be a portal to the underworld, like at Chichen Itza, where the Maya believed a cave entrance to their underworld Xibalba was located, or the caves of Hades at the southern tip of the Peloponnese, or the Huska Castle in the Czech Republic, which legends say has a sealed floor keeping demons at bay. There's many other stories like this. Perhaps the pyramids at Giza are also one of these places. There's an ancient story spanning almost all civilizations of a group of evil gods, titans they called them in the Greek mythology, Satan and the Watchers they're known as in Abrahamic traditions, who were locked away by the gods only to be released again when they're let loose from their prisons within the earth, when the end times begin. Maybe the pyramids at Giza are these prisons where ancient demons have been locked away for thousands of years. This is a story that's prolific throughout mythology. According to the Germanics and Scandinavians, the trickster god Loki was chained up in a cave by Odin with a venomous snake dripping poison on him, only to be released when Ragnarok begins. Or the binding of Fenrir, the monstrous wolf, who will bring destruction to the world during Ragnarok. This beast was said to be bound with a magical chain and a sword through his jaw, in a remote location. In Greek mythology, the Titans were locked away by Zeus in a place called Tartarus, an abyss deep within the earth guarded by the Hecatoncheires, the 100-handed giants. In Islamic traditions, there are stories of the jinn being bound to objects and locked away in caves. In Chinese mythology, there's the story of Sun Wukong, the Monkey King. He is a trickster as well and eventually rebels against the Jade Emperor, a ruler from the mythological dynasties of China. After proving difficult for the Jade Emperor to defeat, an early incarnation of the Buddha intervenes and traps Sun Wukong beneath the 5-element mountains. In Native American myths and legends, there is a character shared across almost every tribe, Coyote, another trickster god. In many tales, he is confined or bound by heroes and gods who are tired of his chaos, oftentimes in a pit or sealed in a rock. In Mayan mythology, the lords of Xibalba were outsmarted in a series of trials by the hero twins Hunahpu and Xbalanque and bound in the depths of the underworld. And then in ancient Egyptian mythology, there is the story of Apophis, the serpent god of chaos. Apophis stands in direct conflict with what the Egyptians call Ma'at, the balance in the world. The story goes that every day Ra, the sun god, travels across the sky in his solar barge, bringing light to the world, and then descends into the underworld only to be reborn the next day at dawn. But Apophis lies in wait deep in the Duat, or Amenthis, the underworld, attempting to destroy Ra to plunge the world into eternal darkness. In some versions, the lesser gods protect Ra, like Isis and Set, and bind the beast and confine him under the earth, where he lays and waits for Ra to return again. What's weird about this idea is that it's extremely common among pop culture and Hollywood. An ancient evil god is reawakened from beneath the pyramids, and the old gods have to make their return to save humanity. And we know for a fact that many of these people that wrote these stories also studied ancient occult mysteries and themes. Alright, so maybe there's an immortal demon locked up in these massive chambers under the pyramids. Great. Or maybe there's treasures of this lost ancient civilization. We can't forget the story of Atlantis did originate with the Egyptians, according to Plato. Maybe the Atlantean treasures of orichalcum and gold are buried in these chambers. If the occult idea of the Hall of Records has any truth to it, there could be a number of things stored down there. A library of lost texts, all of which would be older than the Epic of Gilgamesh. Records from the era where the gods were said to have ruled. Or maybe lost artifacts from a later era. This could be where the missing Ark of the Covenant was smuggled off to sometime around 600 BC, when it was lost from the historic record. Many researchers have suggested a link between the Ark and the pyramids. In the largest of the pyramids, the Pyramid of Khufu, sits a granite sarcophagus, of which the dimensions are the same measurements the Bible says the Ark of the Covenant was. Other than that, yeah, maybe it had something to do with this energy generator theory. The theory goes that the caverns underneath the pyramid are flooded from the Nile every so often, creating vibrations that run all the way up the pyramids, where the energy was then channeled through the mechanisms within the pyramid like the king's and queen's chamber, creating some kind of charge either throughout the structure or focused on a single spot, perhaps the apex of the pyramid where the now lost electrum cap was said to have existed, emitting electricity wirelessly in the same way a Tesla coil would. Think of it basically as an early version of Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower. There's actually many theories that Tesla based his tower off the pyramids in Egypt. JP Morgan, the man who was funding Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower, was also at the same time funding archaeological expeditions to Egypt, possibly relaying information back to Tesla to assist in his experiments. But if these caverns below were creating the necessary vibratory frequencies, were not natural formations but engineered megastructures, it would make a lot more sense. Much like early bell makers would painstakingly carve away and shave the insides of their giant bells to get the exact tone or frequency they wanted, these incredible ancient builders shaped caverns, so that when the annual underground flooding hit them, it creates just the right frequency to activate the chambers above inside the pyramid. One must keep in mind the level of mathematical precision we see in these pyramids. That's undoubtable. Perfect alignment so outstanding we would need laser technology to replicate it today. This discovery makes you wonder what else is buried under all these ancient structures. We were just saying how the Chichen Itza pyramid in Mexico has a legend of a cave entrance to the underworld underneath it. Or what about pyramidal-shaped hills? How many mountains are out there that are actually extremely old massive pyramids? I could almost guarantee that at least one of these has bigger structures hidden underneath. Or how many more underground cities exist? The giant Derin Kuyu caves in Turkey weren't discovered until 1963. And they're still finding more connecting networks over there in Turkey today. There are literal cities existing underground. How many cultures have legends of entire civilizations living in caves? Almost every native tribe in the Americas do. The Hopi and the Navajo say it was in the Grand Canyon. The Lakota say it was in the Rocky Mountains or Black Hills. The Inca said they came from underneath Lake Titicaca. And the Aztec told a legend of a place within the earth that they originated from, only leaving this place to travel to Mexico sometime in the early 12th century. Thank you all for watching. Let me know any thoughts or theories you might have about these topics down in the comments below. This one's an odd one, and it's going to take a lot more research before we have any sort of definitive answers. We'll definitely talk some more about this one in some future videos, and hopefully there will be some more discoveries made using this new deep scanning technology. So subscribe to the channel for more, and if you want to support our work, go become a member at our Patreon. It's Tales of the Old World at patreon.com. All of you who do already support us, I thank you and appreciate your participation in what we're doing here. Sorry the posting has been spotty as of late, but I'm changing things around a bit and going to start posting videos much more frequently, so don't miss out. Thank you guys, I'll see you next time.